DonInLondon, hello. It's October the 9th. My video's all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol. My behaviour, equally addictive, around people, places and things. Drink in hand, alcoholic drink, with the right people, in the right places, with the right things, doing the right things, wanting the right things. A marketing person's best friend, if you like, as well as my best friend in hand, drink. And it made anything possible, and it made everything impossible in the end. Weird that something which helped me deal with my feelings, either experience the good ones, which I thought were good, and push away the bad ones, the ones which were less easy to deal with. Usually fear, pain, hate, all the negatives, if you like. But they're not so negative these days, because if they're rising up inside me, these extraordinary feelings that we humans have, then better to acknowledge them, deal with them truthfully, and say, I feel like this, I feel like that. And that was the starting point with my recovery from being a hopeless alcoholic on my way out with nowhere to go. Yeah, indeed nowhere to go in the end. Preferring isolation and not being in the company of anything or anyone, to being involved, part of, included in life again, in whatever way seems possible on a daily basis. And I didn't do it on my own, I needed help. But alcohol kept me isolated for a long time, working on willpower, self-will, and what became self-harm, because I couldn't stop doing something which was hurting me and hurting those people around me, or indeed just simply making people avoid me at all costs, because I was a hopeless case and could not be reformed or rehabilitated. At least I thought so. And what happened? Well, I had a moment of clarity somewhere along the way, saying to myself, it can't get any worse, and I can't do this on my own. So I rang up a professional person who said, this is what you need to do, and I started following some simple instructions. For the very first time, accepting that whatever I had done in the past, it didn't work, and I couldn't stop drinking. But there had been many attempts, and many failures, if you like, which got me to the place called rock bottom. The bad news and the good news is that if you get to rock bottom and you find you need help, it's out there. The other bad news, well, that's the good news. The bad news is you can have more than one rock bottom, because we humans are prone to go back to old ways, old attitudes and behaviour, if we think sometimes or feel that we can do it all again, that nothing has gone wrong or will go wrong this time. Ask anyone who was trying to give up drink on their own and failed. It's called insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that was me, and this is me today, sober, just about. Still full of pain, but a different type of pain, simply because I'm living longer. And in the end, it came down to me finding a fellowship, or a fellowship finding me, via good advice and instruction. I don't respond well to instructions, but in the end it turned out that if you go to a fellowship which will help you learn your emotional and spiritual condition on a daily basis and ask for help when you need it, you're likely to not only get sober, but find that life can work again. It may not ever be the same as it was. Indeed, I never want it to be the same as it was. I like the fact that it keeps on changing every day. So I didn't fix myself in the end. I spent years and years fixing myself with a drink and anything else in terms of behaviour, trying to be perfect, trying to be in the right relationship, trying to be in the right job, a very trying person. And then this fellowship came along called Alcoholics Anonymous. And all they asked is turn up, listen for the similarities and not the differences. So I listened to both the similarities and differences as any good person would, being challenged personally that I couldn't stop drinking on my own, and here was a fellowship who could help me. Or a fellowship of people, men and women, who had found sobriety one day at a time. and I didn't believe them. So still full of personal rage, denial, ignorance about how to get sober, but somehow in a place where people were sober, even if I didn't believe them at first. I was expecting someone to shout, "Joke, it's okay, you can drink again." And the answer was, you need never drink again. It's up to you as an individual what you choose to do. So this fellowship is all about freedom of choice on a daily basis. And I don't speak for AA, never can, never will. It's full of people like me who can speak where they choose, and nobody's going to tell us what to do, because there are no rules, laws or regulations in AA fastening people to a cult or a dogma. Life changes daily, as we can see all around us, and we can change with it, or we get stuck. And if we get stuck, we're likely to go backwards into, what have I done to deserve this? And blame something else for our malady. That is getting back in the addiction again. So what is AA? These videos are a flavour of what AA is. I don't represent AA, I never can, never will, because it changes every day. What you see is what you get on a daily basis. Sometimes it really is fantastic, and sometimes it feels like the worst thing you've ever experienced in your life. But either way, you're still sober if you're going to meetings and not drinking. And often it's the painful days, the days where we don't like what is being said. We don't like the truth as it is explained, because it means we have to change something in us, and we prefer our old ways. So not easy to be in fellowship, but then it becomes easier to live life sober, and then fellowship takes on a new meaning. So what is it? I've shared the AA preamble on this little card, and then something from the Daily Reflections, an AA literature book, and it has a reading 1 page a day, all about the 12 steps for me to be a more open, honest, willing individual, and the 12 traditions which hold the fellowship in unity, service and recovery without any leaders. So this is AA, the preamble, and I'll add a bit as I go. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So we just help each other as best we can. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, and that's it, a desire to stop. Doesn't mean people have stopped when they first get there, first meetings or whatever, or maybe relapse and go back for another bit of research. It's always there, and with a desire to stop, we can stop. There are no dues, and the point is, if you only have a desire to stop, and there are no rules, laws or regulations, no one's going to stop you doing whatever you want to do. So it comes down to personal choice, a choice to learn how to be sober, one day at a time, so that life can be a bit magical again, or to go back and die in an ocean of alcohol. You may not die immediately, but certainly your ability to cope with reality will be severely impaired. Mine was, but I can only speak for me. I can't speak for you. There are no dues or fees for AA membership, so if you haven't got any money, come anyway. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. Some of us have a little bit of money, we have a prudent reserve, and pay for tea, coffee, rent and literature. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. But I am allied to organisations, affiliations, causes and all the rest of it, and so are you. But in fellowship we put those to one side. We may talk about them incessantly, because they're part of our experience, strength and hope of living reality. But nobody's there to tell you and impose on you a particular view. If somebody does, you politely tell them where to go. Please carry on with your life, and I'm learning to live mine. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So the primary purpose really says it all. It's about staying sober and helping others find sobriety and get sober. But it's a personal journey. So the fellowship can't change you. You can change you. The fellowship can share experience, strength and hope of what's working for people, with all their foibles and beliefs and understandings about life. And then we hear the similarities in our stories, in our life story of living, how it has been for us and how it's been for other people. And we share about it incessantly, as often as we feel it is necessary to go to meetings, and then more so because fellowship is fellowship. It's a place where we can get on with each other. And I was writing a piece yesterday. I'd been watching something on TV about it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a fellowship to keep me sober. What I've realised is very often we are almost hoodwinked into believing that one person can make the difference in one other person's life. And maybe we do to an extent, but it's actually the other person who gets themselves sober by listening to the many voices in the fellowship. No single voice ever kept me sober. I needed to listen to everyone almost every day for quite a long time, spending an hour or so, or an hour and a half, listening and sharing about what's happening in my life and what's helping me keep sober. So maybe it does take a village to raise a child, but I also know, in my case, it takes a fellowship to keep me sober, so I can actually express what is going on for me, either on a video or in a meeting. And no more so when maybe somebody asks us for particular help. When they're rejecting the fellowship, they are looking for maybe a faster way, an easier way, a softer way to be sober. Well, in my experience, there is no fast, easy or soft way to be sober. We have to deal with life on life's terms. We have to deal with the reality of where we are now and what we can do with our one day of living, that is today. So AA is an emotional, spiritual program. Emotional, knowing what our feelings are and what to do. And spiritual seems, in my understanding, but it's just a belief and opinion in me, my understanding of spiritual is very clear. It's the ability to cope with now. And everything is spiritual. Everything we touch is spiritual. And we are spiritual if we're living in the moment. But if we're living in history and awkward about it and stuck in a circle of behaviour which can't change because we don't know how to, then we're not really living in the moment. So when that senior cleric in an organisation which I'm not part of, said, when asked what is spiritual, the ability to cope with reality, seems pretty good. And the rest of their belief system around God and their particular form of religion is what works for them, and I'm working on what is working for me. But I'm not about to impose my views and beliefs on you. Find the truth of what works for you. Truth of what works for you is what's behind it all. And in this book, the Daily Reflections in October, it talks about step 10, which is pretty far on in the number of steps that we have to learn about. But it's one of those you can be doing all the time, any time. It's about asking myself, how is it going? How am I feeling? What's disturbing me? What's working for me? It's a spot to check inventory of life, right now. So if I'm heading into difficulty, whoa, hang on, I feel wrong about this, I feel disturbed by this, the disturbance is in me about real life. Real life is not doing something to me. Real life is just carrying on with or without me. It's how I keep engaged in it, which is important. And that's how sober works for me. So the daily reading today, which is called the spiritual angle. Oh no, the spiritual axiom. Spiritual is what you decide it is. I quite like the idea that it's the ability to cope with now, regardless of one's religious beliefs. Spiritual, living in the moment. And the axiom simply means almost like an obvious truth. So the spiritual axiom is living in the moment of now. And some call that the art of the bleeding obvious, saying things like that. But it's not so obvious and wasn't so obvious to me for a long time. It is a spiritual axiom, an established rule or principle or self-evident truth, which it wasn't to me, that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. And that's true, there's something wrong. If I am disturbed and things aren't in balance, then the regulator in my head, or the governor of what is going on, it doesn't seem to be simpatico, or I'm not living in the moment. I never truly understood the 10th step spiritual axiom until I had the following experience. I was sitting in my bedroom reading into the wee hours when suddenly I heard my dogs barking in the backyard. My neighbours frown on this kind of disturbance, so with mixed feelings of anger and shame, as well as fear of my neighbours' disapproval, I immediately called my dogs in. Several weeks later the exact situation repeated itself, but this time, because I was feeling more at peace with myself, I was not disturbed by anything. I was able to accept the situation. Dogs will bark, and I calmly called in the dogs. Both incidents taught me that when a person experiences nearly identical events and reacts two different ways, then it is not the event that is of prime importance, but the person's spiritual condition. Feelings come from inside, not from outward circumstances. When my spiritual condition is positive, I react positively. Now, I have a lovely neighbour whose name she will remain anonymous, but her dog is called Wobble, and Wobble barks, and sometimes my neighbour's reaction is very loud, very voluble, to shout the dog down to try and stop it from barking, and other times she just doesn't care and it barks away incessantly. Now, either way it's going to disturb me, unless I'm thinking positively, live and let live, because sometimes my TV goes, I fall asleep and it's still a bit loud, and said person complained to the council, my local institution of what's called ASBOs. It won't come to that because I've got headphones now. But you know what? When a person is disturbed and can't do something about something, and they shout and shout and shout, they are disturbed. I'm not actually disturbed by their disturbance, I'm just sorry that it's happening. So what is my reaction these days? Do I turn my television up louder in order to drown out the noise of the dog and the shouting, baying that goes on? Or do I put my headphones on? It's about me and my attitudes and what's disturbing me. Well, I'm not actually disturbed by my neighbour. It's been going on for 4 years and I've got used to it, and it's no worse than the bottle rattling that goes on around here in the small hours where people are checking out the wine and spirits bottles from all the big restaurants. And I feel alright about that. I've just realised I've folded my notes and put them away and I'm not finished. I can't get off that lightly, and nor can you. Some of the things I was thinking this morning. So step 10, if I'm disturbed by the hammerings, knockings and scaffolding being put up on the apartments next to mine so they can do some repairs over the winter, which means that they're going to be there all winter, I could get very disturbed and think my view is being spoiled. Or just get on with life and enjoy the view I've got, which is coming through now, a bit of sunshine. So this morning, I've had a few things on my mind all week, which is why it's so important for me. This thing of a village raises the child and a fellowship keeps me sober has been bugging me because I've been asked on a personal level for quite a lot of help, which is inappropriate. It's just simply inappropriate for a whole raft of reasons to do with the way we in fellowship operate, to keep ourselves safe. And mainly it's the many voices we lean on the many in order to stay sober, but if we lean on one person they'll probably fall over with us, and I don't want to cause that sort of, I don't have enough ego to keep it going, an idea that I can save anybody on my own. I don't want to either, because it's a codependent, unhelpful, and really it's unhealthy. It's codependency, power over one or another having power over me, because I feel that I ought to be able to help them. And the answer is no. I can't help them on my own. I can't do it without fellowship, and they need to be in fellowship too in order that I can help them. It's not a precondition, it's just an understanding I have. Because if I try and help them singly, in a counselling way, that will really undo me fast. I don't have the petitions in my head anymore, which made me a good counsellor, namely a vat of alcohol to keep my own crap separate. And I don't want it that way either. I don't want to be a counsellor anymore. Oh, thank God I've said that. But I know there was a temptation in my early days to think that as I learned a bit more about it, I could share it on a personal level and make it a career. I know for a fact that's not my way forward. Maybe for other people, but not for me. So my thoughts this morning, and this may seem a bit way out there. Opinion and belief is often confused with truth. So we all have opinions and beliefs, and they feel true. But just because we believe and have an opinion, it may feel true for us, but it does not mean it's true for them, whoever them or they may be. For example, and this is me just trying to be funny, Einstein's theory about his relatives is no longer law. The neutrinos have repealed it. And by that I mean, Einstein came up with the theory of relativity, E equals mc squared, and I could go on all day long and still get no nearer to what it means. But essentially what it suggests is that nothing can travel faster than light. But then these pesky neutrinos have come along, and they do apparently travel faster than light, according to the instruments we have at our disposal in the 21st century. So Einstein's relatives are now wrong, or theory about relativity is not so good. Or at least it seems to lead into a new law of relativities, which we don't know yet, because we haven't worked it out. So everything changes, as does the nature of time. I never seem to have enough time doing these videos. What is the spiritual angle, and what is the spiritual angle to the way we live? If we can agree that spiritual is simply the ability to cope with reality, and in fellowship keep sober, then we are okay. If we make it more explicit, and try and make it more specific, it seems to help less. If we impose our view and belief, it does not work. I prefer to work with what works today. So if the spiritual axiom is living in the moment of now and coping with it, that's the spiritual angle. The axiom is that if we can live in the moment of now as best we can, understanding ourselves and our feelings and what is going on around us, without a drink inside us, there's lots of qualifications there, then sobriety is working for me. It is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. And that's an obvious truth. And some people call that the art of the bleeding obvious. But it's not so obvious, because when we're in life and something happens and we're responding and reacting to our environment, and somebody nearly knocks us down with a great big bus or a railway, I don't know, a train or something, we tend to look angrily at the train or the bus. Well, hang on a minute, I'm feeling frightened and angry caused by this particular incident. It's not the bus driver's fault, I stepped into the road. But yet we would like to blame the bus driver for going too fast. So it's looking at our part in it, always, in step 10. It's not what other things are happening. What's disturbing me and what can I do about it? Well, stay off the roads when buses are coming past, or step out of the way of the angry person who we have no control over. And there are other agencies within the world and within our neighbourhood who are there to look after us when it comes to angry, mean people. And it's only rarely that we have to sit on them as we would as a child on another child. But hopefully we don't have to do that very often. Other years, and often we are reminded of times past and to the damage we endured in different parts of our life. A part of the acid test in sobriety is finding forgiveness for unspeakable acts of emotional cruelty to us and by us. So it's like in a relationship which is falling apart. It starts with one sort of indifference coming towards us, and we start with the ball rolling with more indifference. And it gets angry and horrible and hurtful, and we wonder why we fall out of love. but maybe we didn't actually check out where we were to start with. So there's all sorts of things which go on. Forgive and learn, or we repeat mistakes without realising. The steps always about changing how we feel and live today. So the steps do this. When I'm disturbed, hang on a minute, am I going back into old behaviour? I really like that person, I'd like to know them better. Why am I attracted to them? What's going on? And again from last year, it is a spiritual axiom, an established rule of principle or self-evident truth. Our ability to cope with reality is always changing. Some days we are very able to deal with the reality, and other days woes may pour down on us. Difficult days disturb us, how we feel and think. Acceptance is making best choices today. So that pesky serenity prayer comes into it. Can do, change me and my attitudes. Cannot do, can't change you and your attitudes. And I keep on learning the wisdom to know the difference. Because why should people change their attitudes and behaviour just to suit me? I can change my direction. Or I can try with freedom to try and influence, to get to a common understanding. But that doesn't mean the understanding is going to be there. And if I impose it, it won't last. So I am powerless over people, places and things mainly. Inanimate things just won't respond. And people have their own ideas. And if I let go of trying to find out what they are, I've got a better chance of working out how to be included or not. Love, not retribution. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. A nursery rhyme, and most often a nursery crime in the making for many growing up in a difficult world. Learning how to endure insult and injury, and followed by the classic "I did not mean it," is what bullies do. Or, I don't know, natural competition, all that sort of stuff can be exaggerated into very bad behaviour. Usually when we react to emotional pain, and we all learn how in our growing up, in so many ways, it is hard to resolve what response may be right as we live these moments. Some face torments head on, some resolve that words never hurt, some cover up, and in the end we find a way to feel less pain and get on with life. There is no right or wrong response to words. I feel the words these days and the intent behind them. And I recall it all starts with a brave face, for me this is. Some better and some worse. Bullying and degrading behaviour is often sewn into the fabric of our life. And then ritualised bullying occurs all through our society and civilization. Justifiable intimidation of individuals and nations happens every day as one set of beliefs hacks another set of beliefs into submission. I must have been having a bad day this time last year. Or did I write it then? It's over the years. We may not be able to change the world, the outlook of another human being, and certainly not what has happened, so we can't change history. We can change ourselves, our outlook, and the way we respond to life today. We can find our own spiritual compass to find the truth, our own values in living, and make choices in our outlook and attitudes. Fortune can smile on anyone, any day, and the same applies in reverse, so we can have major catastrophes. In recovery life, we become more aware of what happens in this world than our part with all matters. How we choose to live, our outlook is open for change. Simply put, humans with an open, honest and willing attitude can change. It takes time to change, to learn to love rather than hate, to forgive most of all. Forgiving is not for the faint-hearted. Forgiving is living with truth every day, that we can learn to live differently and to find a spiritual path which is simply truth, love and wisdom. And that for me is God. God is truth, love and wisdom. So it's not about my opinion and belief. It's not that I have a preconceived idea of what love will turn out to be, because I'm learning wisdom all the time. So in the moment and forever. We may have been brutalised in the past. We may have broken all the rules of good conduct and whatever the moral codes we were taught. Once we know the difference in recovery and we know the path, we have a chance to make good our living on a daily basis. Yeah, it's tough. It's not easy being in sobriety. Because at every twist and turn, denial in me can come back quite quickly. Oh no, it wasn't me. I didn't cause that. I'm not that sort of person. I'm not heading into difficulty. And of course the answer is I am sometimes, and I don't even know I'm doing it. With truth, love and wisdom, our next right action is more likely to be peace and serenity. With hate, prejudice and retribution, our next justifiable action is more likely to be war and chaos. As an individual, the choice of our next action will always define us. Step 10, or the spot inventory, and a conscience help us make better choices and progress today. It's true, because if we have it in mind, this is why the steps take time to learn, and they may seem to be in an order for a particular reason, that is, to clear the wreckage of the past with steps 1 to 9. But each one of those steps has absolute relevance every day, depending on what our life experiences are. And we can only learn to put the steps into practice as we keep on having life experience. That's another spiritual axiom. If we stay at home and do nothing, that is a spiritual axiom that we will just fester, probably, and stagnate, unless we have a TV, a computer, and all other means of getting in touch with people to be included. So a change in our attitude and behaviour, outward looking rather than inward reflection all the time. But we need both. And I need fellowship to keep me sober. It's really important. It's the many voices in fellowship, always, which make the difference. And the serenity prayer, which I share at the end of my videos, is to God or good conscience, whatever your belief system is. It is a spiritual axiom. I can change me and my attitudes in the moment of now. I can't make you be anything in terms of attitudes and behaviour. And that's the truth. I can't make you do it. And I should stop even thinking I ought to. And the wisdom to know the difference is always in the moment. So, life plunders along, or blunders along. Plunders often. A lot of plundering going on in the world these days. People taking more than their share of human feelings and emotions from each other, which may or may not exist. Pretending is no good. I know that. But we all come to our own conclusions about what to do next. And I like it when I get a bit of help from my friends. So, on my own and isolated, the serenity prayer altogether and with other people, the serenity prayer is equally powerful. So to God, or in good conscience, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. In the moment, always, and just for today.